What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of These Corona Times. You are tuned in with your girl Tiffany and Simone and your boy Brandon.
Oh,
how you doing?
Repping the OC, yeah. How are you doing?
I'm here.
Yeah, we're here. It's been an interesting week since our last episode. I can't believe we're on episode 5 already, the end of the month of May. Our episode today is going to be called Is My Blackness a Threat in These Corona Times? And of course, we'll get into that a little bit more later. But from last week to this week, so much has happened. So I don't know. I'm feeling exhausted, mentally exhausted, physically just not really wanting to go out that much. But other than that, still here.
Drained?
Yeah.
It's very draining, very draining. And, for me, I was already, fairly drained, and then you throw everything else on top of that, and it's just like,
And despite all that's been going on, we still want to thank you all for the support and the love that you all have shown. I got more text messages this week, people asking me about race and racial trauma and just really enjoying what we've been putting out. So, despite all the chaos, y'all still been showing up.
And we thank you all for watching, because we know that this episode coming up and the last episode is difficult to talk about, but there are things that we do really need to discuss and be able to have a space to have those discussions openly and honestly with one another. So I appreciate I appreciate all of the ones who tuned in, who watched, and who shared.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try to check in on self-care. Somehow in the midst of these corona times and police brutality, we're gonna try to check in on self-care. So how did you do, Tiff? What was your goal? I can't even remember.
Okay. My goal was to not watch as much news during the week because it was a lot going on. I don't think George Floyd hadn't happened yet. I'm trying to think. Hadn't yet occurred last week when we got off of our episode. So I did find like the first day, like Memorial Day, I didn't watch it really anything. Just tried to keep it at watching the 5 o'clock briefing that our mayor does. And then George Floyd happened. And then as a result of that, protests have broken out all across not just our city, the city of Louisville, but other places. So I want to say I haven't been watching the news, or I didn't want to, but I have been watching the news. I have been staying tuned into what's going on. So I did not do a good job this week of self-care, being stay away from the news, because I was all in the news this week. So I failed.
Brandon,
I actually did pretty good. I got back into the Bible, started listening to a couple of sermons this week. And it definitely did help. It kind of eased my mind when I was talking to. So for me, my job is talking to people all day long. So, it's when you're already kind of down, to have to talk to members and cheer them up and to motivate them, it's a little bit tough. So, I did that multiple times this week and was able to, to make it through the work day, and I didn't yell at my kids as much. So that definitely an improvement versus the previous week.
And I think mine was to eat better. Did not work out at all.
She had donuts, y'all.
Pound cake, and I have been tearing it up. I have not been sharing it. And then we got donuts. So
she's been talking about donuts for 2 or 3 days, so I'm glad she finally got some.
So I'm gonna just roll that into next week. It didn't go well, but that pound cake is coming into next week with me as well. So it's just, like I said, it's been tough to be okay this week with everything going on. I'm much more vocal on social media than I ever have been.
Yeah,
recently.
You are.
I know it, and it's great, but it also takes a toll. And so I work with people all day too, and it's been really nice to see how my clients and my coworkers and superiors have shown up and been checking on me as well. So amongst all the chaos has been some good, and I think times like these show you who's for you and who isn't.
Yeah.
So
and can I just say, it's okay to not be okay. Like, I know we've said that for corona reasons. Like, It's okay to not be okay. It's a pandemic going on, but it's also okay to not be okay with all the racism and the police brutality and the injustice that's going on. It's a lot to take in. So if you're not feeling your best, that's probably a normal feeling right now. If you feel a little angry, a little stressed, a little tired, that's probably normal.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Brandon, you want to take us into our episode and introduce our.
Most definitely. So, last week we had a very heavy, actually, it's crazy. The last 2 episodes have been fairly heavy. And then we chose, Is My Blackness a Threat? Some of it is because of it seems almost like the double standard that we have when it comes to how we're perceived and how we can do the same kind of things, whether it's getting pulled over or whether it's protesting or whatever the case may be. And, other individuals are treated with respect, they're given leeway, they're given the benefit of the doubt, they're given all of those things. But as soon as we do something that is similar and legal and within our rights, it seems that we're met with such aggression. And, we've all had experiences with law enforcement and whatnot, and we just like, man, it's just me? Am I threatening you because of my skin tone? Like what's going on with that? And so, we just wanted to share, kind of our experiences, when it comes to that and what we've learned by that, and really, and just ask that question because it really seems like it's for lack of a better phrase, a total double standard. And for me, what's really telling is just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, you had armed militia at courthouses and other government facilities.
I mean, armed.
And we're not talking about a couple of knives here. I saw a guy in the subway with a bazooka.
Starting a war, ready to start a war.
In a subway with the bazooka, yelling at guards, yelling at police officers, and absolutely nothing happened.
And let's be clear, this was about Corona.
This was about opening up the economy, opening up businesses. Folks wanted a haircut. Folks wanted their Starbucks or whatever. They wanted stuff open, and they were mad. And while I may not agree with any of those things, I still respect people's ability to protest. You want to protest. Do what you do. But when one group is doing one thing, and then you have us at the same time protesting police brutality, income inequality, all of those type things, we are met with tear gas. We're met with, mass arrests. We're met with pepper spray. We're met with rubber bullets. We're met with all of these things, and it's like, wow, what's good?
And the greatest difference is that's protesting lives lost. It's not protesting coronavirus and being mad the stuff isn't open. It's protesting people's lives actually being lost. And we're not met with the same kind of, I guess, open arms or open ability to be able to protest.
Right.
I think it seems like people are much more concerned about broken windows than they are about lives that we can never get back.
Mm-hmm.
And the racism has been in full display.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Simone, did you want to say anything before we bring our guest in?
Yeah, so we have our special guest, Fred Parker, who is an entrepreneur who wears many, many hats. He's from our church in Louisville, Kentucky. We're having him here today because he owns and operates a security company called the One Elite Security Services, LLC. He is a safety officer, and he really specializes in keeping people safe. So with all the police brutality happening, we knew that his perspective would be invaluable on these Corona times. So we are very happy. We're going to have him come on in just a second.
Mm-hmm. So, like she said, we'll be right back with our special guest, Fred Parker. All right, so if you can notice, our boxes went from 3 to 4. So we are back with our special guest today, someone we all know and love. This is Fred Parker.
Do you? You
Yes,
love
we love you, Freddie.
You all right?
Fred, we've actually
Hello.
already introduced you. Before you came in, we introduced you.
Cool.
So you missed that part, but it was good. It was a good introduction. I just want to mention that, just like in our previous episodes, the things that we're going to talk about, actually, like the last 2 weeks, it's gotten progressively a little bit more disturbing. So I just encourage everybody to take care of yourselves. The stuff that we're talking about might be triggering for you. So, if you need to take a step away, take care of yourself, come back later, then do that. I just want to put that out there before we get started.
Mm-hmm. So, Fred, we thank you for being on with us. We've been talking to you over this past week just about the layout of the episode and everything, and just how drastically things have changed since we talked on Wednesday. But
Yes.
before we get into any of that, we just want to start with our usual opener. Like, how are you doing?
I'm doing decent. I'm not doing great. I'll be honest with you. I'm not doing great at all
Mm-hmm.
in light of uh, what's going on right now. In our city, in our nation, in our world. It's just not a good time for humans, and it's definitely not a good time for Black folks.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I wish I could say I was doing better than I am, but I'm actually not doing too great. But I'm alive and I'm here,
Mm-hmm.
and I can thank God for that. And I'm very happy for that. I'm in my home. I'm actually in my front yard, and I'm not being harassed or bothered by anybody. So, I'm happy for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think as we talked about earlier, we are all feeling not okay right now. But we wanted you on because of your unique perspective and what you do. And so when you think about, being somebody who's, how to keep people safe, and what has that been like for you in light of everything going on to try to do your job in the midst of all this?
So, well, obviously with the COVID crisis, a lot of um, keeping people safe and what I do has been down to a drastic minimum because we've been inside. I haven't had to do much. Although I've gotten calls of people saying, can you come and help me here and help me there, and I've had to decline that because the unknown of what this COVID crisis has been doing and what it's going to do. So I've had to decline a few, but definitely what I would normally be doing during this time of year, I would be swamped with jobs and details right about now. And actually, Brandon would probably be next to me because he actually works for me quite a bit, and so he knows what it looks like around this time of year.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. However, I did get an opportunity to work today to do a security detail for the Black Lives Matter protest down at the Yum Center. So that's the first thing that's actually the first detail I've done in the past 3 months since we've been going through this COVID crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a good gathering today. Maybe 1,500 people. Initially, we were looking at around 350, and it got up to about 1,500. All nationalities, every walk of life was down there in huge support in mass, and it turned out to be an extremely positive thing. And it was actually it was called a healing session, and so they had a couple prayers. They had a couple folks from churches come up and say some scriptures, and then just did give a couple positive words. Ja'Cory Arthur, who is looking to be a congressman here in Louisville in the next couple months, he let it out. And
Real dope artist.
Huh?
It's a real dope artist.
Yeah. Local artist turned professor. He still does his artistry, so he still raps and things. But he's focusing on his becoming a councilman here. So yeah, it was definitely a very positive approach to what in light of where we've been, every day at around this time, and then later on, it was a definite positive approach.
So, Fred, over the last few nights, maybe since Friday night, we've been able to see, especially here in Louisville. I know Simone, you said there's some protests in Mecklenburg where you are, but we've been able to see in Louisville the protests kind of unfold, and they start real peaceful, and then looks like by the time it gets dark, when the police presence comes through, it gets a little more tense by the hour. So just seeing that, like, how was the police presence today? were at the rally that you were at?
So a little background on how those went. Thursday night was the first night that we had protest, and it was completely unknown. We didn't know which way it was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
The city or the police, for that matter, they just uh, came out of nowhere, and it did start off slightly calm, but the irritation was there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it didn't take long to rub that irritation and for it to get out of control, where they started doing, damaging the city. And so they definitely had to make a game plan for if this was going to go on to the next night, which was Friday night. Friday night let's go keep with Thursday night. Thursday night, seven people actually got shot. So there was gunfire. They did not clarify, where it came from or where they originated, who was at cause, but several people did get shot. So Friday night was definitely a serious matter, because if we're looking at already on the very first night, people getting injured by gunfire, then this is serious. Fortunately, Friday night, we did not end up having that happen, nor did we have any gunfire on during the protest on last night. But Friday night ended up being bad in its own way, where they did more destruction to the city.
Yeah.
And so they were showing that even though we're trying to be positive, the negative did creep in. Now, there's been quite a few statements being made that there's some out-of-towners coming in, and that happens actually in the history of all protests.
Right.
You will have out-of-towners who come in and have their own agenda, whether it be to incite race wars, whether it be to just, and get them to tear their own cities up, or whatever. But they have them come in and they will help fuel the fire, so to speak.
Yeah,
But it
escalate.
almost,
So that is
it almost
happening.
seems,
Huh?
it almost seems like, those out of town folks are just opportunists. Because I mean, we think we're, the focus is on one way. They can come in and start looting somewhere else, get up on the next expressway beyond going to the next city.
Yes. And there are times that it's like that, but then there also are specific groups of people who sit around and wait, watch the news, watch what's going on, watch the tide change in the nation, and they actually get on the road and make trips specifically to towns to incite and make sure that that town is turned upside down.
So
Because it only takes just one individual to do something out of control.
Yeah.
Especially when you have to understand, we're feeding on anger, we're feeding on pain, we're feeding on all of this. So it only takes one individual to say, let me throw this rock through the window because I'm pissed. And the next guy's like, you know what? I've been wanting to do that, but I haven't had the nerve. So now that you did it, I'm getting ready to do it. And after that, it's a domino effect. So it doesn't take much at all.
So Fred, as you said that, like, they brought something to my attention. There have been a lot of course, a lot of rallies and stuff advertised on social media. And on Friday, there was some confusion because there was one rally that wasn't really Black Lives Matter sponsored. It wasn't by any special group or anything. And folks said, we're telling people don't go to this one because these are folks just trying to loot and trying to tear up things. Like, don't go to this rally. So are you, like, it's kind of hard, like, when you have folks just showing up, you don't really know, like, what they're there for, what agenda they're there to push, and what they're doing.
So what people are doing that are legitimate organized groups that are trying to protest in the right way, they're letting people know. They're using social media, they're using word of mouth, and they're saying, we represent X, Y, and Z. For instance, Black Lives Matter. And we are going to go and we're going to be on Second and Market, and we're going to be there for an hour and a half, and we're going to talk about the such and such, Brianna or Aubrey or whoever, and we're going to be out of there. Those are the sanctioned ones that people are knowing about, and they're actually wanting the police to know about it, the mayor to know about it, and all officials to know that we're coming here. We're going to do that because we have a right to protest at any time.
Right.
That's a civil right to do. So there's no crime in that. There's no problems in that. And the police do not have a problem with that at all. They don't come down to cause any problem. In fact, they come to try to make sure that safety levels are of standard. Then you have the people who take advantage of those situations. They know, or they think that because someone's protesting that it may get out of control. So they're waiting in the ranks, waiting for that to get out of control so they could do, like you said, looting. Because looting and protesting, rioting and protesting, they're not the same.
Right.
They're all different entities, they're all different things, okay? Unfortunately, protesting can turn into looting and rioting. You know what I'm saying? But protesting is not the same as those. And so when you have those people out there like, we're just gonna go out there and act a fool because we heard that they're acting a fool, that they're angry, that everybody's mad, black power and blah, 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 blah. Let me go down here and bring my anger down there and wait for that moment, for that window to break so I can go in there and steal something or just make some hair.
Well, I think that's an interesting point because maybe this is just me, but I feel like when we're talking about protests, you're more likely to see people talking about white protesters. But when it's black people in the street,
it's a riot.
Then it's a riot. And it's like there is obviously a racial component here that upsets for us. And I'm wondering, like, you have the security background. So, I mean, you in essence could be a police officer. So I wonder, like, with you, I mean, do you identify with them in some way? And as a black man, like, is it hard for you to identify?
I've made it my duty to identify both sides. Everything that I do, I try to be diplomatic about it. That only makes sense to me. And unfortunately, everyone doesn't think like that. But for me to stay safe, to stay on top of my game, I have to put myself in everybody's shoes. And so I try to, get all the information I can from whether it be negative or positive, left wing, right wing, up, down, whatever, white or black. I try to put myself in those situations to at least be able to make a positive judgment call and a positive move on whatever I'm going to do. And so what we get, when I say we, the four of us and everybody that shares our melanin, is that our melatonin, I'm sorry, not melanin, our melatonin. No, our melanin.
Oh, your melanin,
yes.
right?
Melatonin makes you sleepy.
That's right. You're right. You're right.
That's when I give the kids that
night. What happens is that it seems that every time we come to protest, it's because of a major injustice done to our color. Okay, it may not just be something that's just like, oh, that was rough, that shouldn't have happened. It's usually major, and so when that major injustice is done, then that incites the anger that we all are definitely privy to have. Okay, we should be mad about some of the things that are done to our people. And so when that anger comes, then automatically it's assumed that we're going to bring that anger and show our anger by acting crazy. Okay, that's the assumption that happens. That's what we black people do. Everybody knows that. That's supposed to be the story. Now, if it turns out that way every single time, I mean, that's because I think that's more so as what the expectation is. It's going to get crazy.
That bias.
You go to a white rally or a white protest situation. They tend to come in peace because they're going to use their mouthpiece, and they usually are heard. Okay, and so what happens is they can come and say, "We're not going to go to work tomorrow because we don't like what happened in the office building." And then the heads are going to say, "You know what? We need you at work, so let's fix that tomorrow." It ends up being okay.
Yeah.
And so it's done. That protest was a healthy protest. We attempt to start like that and do the same thing, but it just never turns out that way because that may not be driven with anger. There's just like, I need the water bottles to be on the sink when I get to work every morning. And ours is like, why was your knee on his neck? Why did you shoot him 7 times and his hands was up the entire time and he had nothing on his waist? Why did he still get shot? Why did you shoot that 12-year-old boy who had a cap gun? You understand what I'm saying? So there is a huge anger drive behind ours. And so it takes nothing. It takes nothing for it to go from verbal, hell no, we won't go, to, I know you did not just come up in my face. Now we got a problem. You know what I'm saying? But then let's leave the protest and let's go back 100 years. And let's go back 200 years, 300. Okay, now we got to remember how it all started. That drive has always been there. It's never been left. It's never been forgotten.
So you got all that. You got all that from 400 years ago.
Absolutely.
On you. It's built up.
Right now. So it's not like you can't even look at it in what's the word? The tunnel vision type aspect. You got to look at it in totality.
It's heaped on.
From just everything. It's a whole anthill now.
Even what's happening right now is heaped on. Like, of course, I think it's a good time to say what the message is of the protest in Louisville. They're asking for justice for Breonna Taylor, asking for those officers involved in her killing to be arrested and charged and not get fired. But it's on top of what's now happened with George Floyd, what happened with Ahmaud Arbery, what happened with Sean Reed in Indianapolis. Like, it's just more and more, and it's like you can't take it anymore. And now we're out here, like Fred said, you've got to be a lot for you to even get out in these numbers and these droves to be at this level. Like, it's got to be a lot on you. And the thing that's bothering me about this whole rioting thing, I know people have adverse feelings about riots, and I'm never advocating violence or destruction, but we live in Louisville. Louisville's a college town, just down the road in Lexington, in UK. Let them lose a championship game. There will be couches on fire, cars flipped over, all kinds of stuff tore up. And they're just upset. They lost the game. Let's not bother them. Like, I've never seen cops show up in riot gear for them, rubber bullets for that, or tear gas for that.
Just like trauma is generational, and as Black people, we carry that trauma from slavery up to now. I think for them, that entitlement and that privilege, I think they carry that as well. Mm-hmm. And so there are just certain bias. And you have to think about with some of these officers and just white people in general, ones that are racist or whatever, you have to think about, like, who was at their kitchen table when they were growing up? What kind of messages did they hear? Who were they told not to deal with, told not to do business with? And if we think about these people who become officers, it's like there's all of that I'm thinking about. There's all that bias, all that unchecked bias that's in there. And it's like, how do you weed that out? Like, is the training set up to consider that? Because from what we said the other day, Fred, you were like, the training is nil. Like, how do you get that badge? It sounds like you just show up.
So, to me, I don't think that it's extremely hard to be a police officer, okay? I have an abundance of police officer friends that I've talked to about, what's required. I almost became a cop myself. The physical test, the written test, passing psychological tests, all these things. It doesn't take a brain surgeon or rocket science to become a police officer, all right? So with that being known, with that being said, then that will explain off the top, how you could become an officer with them not really knowing who they're hiring. Okay. You have to also remember and to keep in mind, why are people driven to be in law enforcement? Okay. What power? Is everybody doing that to do what it says on the side of the car, which is to serve and protect? Mm-hmm. Is everyone there to do that? Or is there an ulterior motive? Are there people on there saying, you know what, I was picked on my entire high school career.
This is my chance to be.
I never had a girlfriend in college. And so, you know what? When I get this badge, when I get this gun, and when I get this free reign to run around the city, run around this state and do whatever I want to do, I can pay back. And, my payback may not be being mean to everybody, but I'm going to be mean to a specific type of people. Mm-hmm. Every dorky guy that I see, or every Black football player I see, or every buffed ex-military man I see, or whatever, what I'm saying? So you have to remember that everybody has a motive for why they get into the line of work they get into, whatever it is. But since we're talking about law enforcement, that's all that matters right now, because law enforcement is who has the most attention right now in the nation. It's law enforcement. So you have to say, okay, what was your drive? And so I don't think anyone comes on and goes through everything that's required to become police officer and say, thank you for my badge, thank you for my Glock and my handcuffs, and oh, by the way, I can't stand niggers. No. I'm be honest with you. I don't think anyone's ever done that. Yeah. Okay.
They may not even know. They may not even know that they don't like them, and that's the scary part.
Yeah.
That's true. You get that situation. And that's something it's interesting you say that. I look at racism, why people are or how people are, and I've talked to my daughter and my family about it. I've met a lot of people who do not know that they are.
Yes.
And they didn't find out until they were. You know what I mean? Yes. Okay. And I'm like, and then I look at their family and I look at the way they were raised, and some of them are friends of mine, and some of them that I've known for years, and they finally showed that color. And you're like, oh, I didn't know that you thought like that. But when you think about it, you're like, I don't really think that there's a lot of families that are going around that, the dads are like, you know what, boy, you gonna be this type of kid. Sometimes you just learn by example.
Yeah.
You just
Nature
learn
versus
by
nurture.
osmosis. You know what I'm saying? And it just becomes a part of you. I know there's plenty of things that I do as a
Absolutely.
professional, as a father, as a Black man, that I got just because my dad did it in front of me.
Yep.
And my wife says, "Dang, that's just you do that just like your dad." And I'm like, my dad didn't teach me that.
Right.
He didn't teach me it.
Yeah.
He just lived it.
Yeah.
And you
Okay.
observed it and you took it in.
And I
that's
took it
what
in.
the worst of racism is, where you say, "Oh, I'm not racist. I have Black friends or whatever," but then you act in ways that perpetuate racism.
Yeah.
And that is the most problematic form, because if you can be a KKK member, like I know who they are, like I got it. You know what I'm saying? Like I know who you are, what you stand for, but somebody who tells me they're not racist, but then they're doing stuff behind the scenes to keep me from getting ahead, that's the most insidious.
Yeah.
Then you have those same people who find out that there's others like them. And then, then they feel they get your camaraderie there, and then it becomes a problem. And so now everyone is trying to look at this thing, this police thing as, that, well, cops are racist. White cops hate Black people. And it's, this fraternal organization that is out to get people. And that's not the case. There are plenty of bad seeds out there, but there's just as many good seeds in there. Okay. So I'm not even going for that. I'm not even going to play this game of, let's go be against cops, white, Black, or any other nationality, you know what I'm saying? Because of what's going on. I hate what happened to George. It has boiled my blood. It has hurt my heart. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say that that was a police problem. That was, how you ever pronounce his name, Chauvin's problems. I think that's how you pronounce his name. That was his problem. And those that were along with him, because he found his comrades. He found his support group that thought like him, acted like him, and they did what they did because of what they felt for, in my opinion, this is me saying, in my opinion, towards the Black race. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they did any justice that day.
Well, they could. It was four of them. They could have just stopped it.
It was 4.
One of them could have been like, "Hey, bruh."
3 on him, one that wasn't touching. But the one that wasn't touching, it's been alleged that that's his brother-in-law.
And just to clarify, we're talking about the police officer that had his knee on
his knee. Yes.
On George Floyd.
Yeah, 9 minutes.
Yeah, for 9 minutes. And guess what? That whole incident, there's another tape that came out. That whole incident, there's another 3 to 4 minutes before that even happened, that he was over there and that they were doing that. So we're talking about a 13 to 15 minute altercation that probably didn't have to go that way. Even if he resisted, even if he was being resistant, even if he was acting a pure butt, it did not have to end that way. It didn't have to go that way. I don't believe by what I saw that it needed to be that many police officers holding him to that extent for that time period and never giving first aid. That's my problem. My problem is, as you're there to serve and protect, as you're there to make sure that everyone's safe,
never rendered aid.
As soon as I don't hear you no more, as soon as I feel like that I've got you under control, then I'm gonna start paying attention to you and seeing, oh, he's unconscious. Oh, wait a minute. I wasn't paying attention. I knocked him out, because that's the first stage. You lose your consciousness before you die. So he didn't just die on the spot. He lost consciousness. And so, what happened? Why did he lose consciousness? Did I choke him out? Did his heart explode? Because that's what they're trying to say. They're trying to say that his heart exploded. He didn't get choked out. Okay. And so, okay, fine. Maybe his heart did explode. But why did it explode? Because he was in a traumatic situation for an extensive amount of time. He was gasping for air. He was breathing. He was worked up. So yes, maybe his heart did explode. Maybe he didn't get choked out. Maybe his knee did.
That was because.
But it happened because you were on his neck.
Yeah.
And anybody who gets their airway closed panics.
Yeah.
Anybody.
And initially when we saw this, I know you didn't watch it, or I don't know if you watched the video or not, but even the screenshot of the situation, initially you just see 2 officers. So, I mean, to know that there's 2 more behind the car, like on him, holding him down. There's 3 people now holding down 1 person. If he's clearly saying to you, I can't breathe, and at the point that he stops even talking, why don't you then remove your knee from his neck? Like,
at the very least.
At the very least, he's no longer a threat to you. And it's 3 of y'all. It's 3 of y'all.
Mind you, the other 2 were on his legs and his lower torso.
He wasn't going nowhere.
And he was handcuffed.
Yeah. And see, that makes me think in his mind, at some point he stopped being a police officer and something else jumped in there.
Yes.
Something else that had nothing to do with his job something that was so deeply ingrained
Yes.
that he was supposed to kill.
Yes.
Mhm.
You would extrapolate that from what you saw. His
Mhm.
stoic facial expression, completely ignoring everything,
It was
and
disturbing.
someone explained it, and I thought of this. When I looked at it, it reminded me of something. Have you ever seen a big cat, whether it be a cheetah, a leopard, anything, and they go and they attack an animal? They're
Mhm.
all not trained, but they all by nature go straight for the neck. Okay,
Mhm.
that's how
Right.
they have to constrict the neck and they bite them. Typically, they know that they don't kill you immediately. They have to hold and hold and hold until you are
Mhm. Till you choke
motionless,
out. Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so they'll hold you, and you watch it like in nature, like on the National Geographic channel. They'll hold them and they'll lock themselves up. And they'll just sit there, still, and they'll hold them there, and the animal's flopping, 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 and then the animal stops, and they still hold them because you know what? That could just be that they're unconscious. And so
Mhm.
if they let them go, they get some breath. And I've seen the animal jump out and take off when they let go early. So they hold him, hold him, hold him, hold him. And he's like, that's excessive. And then finally, when they're fully limp, they probably can feel the blood no longer coursing through their veins.
Mhm.
Then they will let them down and begin to eat.
Mhm.
That day reminded me of that, the
Mhm.
exact same way, where the animal was just like, I'm going to wait this out. And he was
Yeah.
like, I'm going to wait this
It
out.
was like
His
it was
facial
just
expression was just like the cheetah.
it was
Mhm.
He didn't
evil.
move. He was motionless. He sat there and he just, in fact, he shifted his body a couple times to make sure he was comfortable.
Yeah. Let me make sure that I'm comfortable while I'm choking
I
you
literally
out.
saw him
I
shift his
want to be
legs
comfortable.
so that he could be comfortable. I saw it. I told you I watched the video innumerable times. And he sat there and his hand was relaxed and he never looked down to see.
Never looked at him.
People were screaming at him from the outside saying that he was unconscious and check on him. And he just was stoic. That to me spoke magnitudes.
That
Mhm.
is reminiscent of a time that we haven't lived. Like that is reminiscent
Yeah.
of slavery. That is reminiscent of, and it's disturbing to think in 2020 that this is what we're seeing. And I have to go. We did some research for this, and so there's so much research, but there was a study done in 2017. It shows that the results showed that the stature and physique of Black people, specifically young Black men, their physical size, it plays a role in the process of these types of events. So, Black people, there's a perception of a threat even when there isn't one, simply because of like y'all's bodies, how y'all are built.
Listen, it's funny you say that, Simone. So right before all of this happened, I'm in San Francisco, Oakland area, hanging out, right? And so I was out there hanging out, celebrating my cousin's birthdays, and we went out to this one place, and I went up to the bar to get a drink, and the guy was like, "Oh, it's gonna be a little bit of minute. There's a little bit of a line. It was Saturday night or whatever." I was like, "Fine, cool, it's whatever." And Fred, you know me, man. I'm not gonna put my hands on nobody unless I have to. Like that's just not me. Yeah,
Right.
I'm not a fighter like that. Unless I'm in danger, my peoples are in danger. That's just not my go-to. So the dude on the behind the bar, when it became my turn, he was like, "I'm so sorry, so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. Here's your drink, and then here's another one, because you can just beat me up." And I was like,
Why are you there? Beat you up.
"Okay, I said you was good. I mean, it's like, but that just reminded me, and I'm not even
Your
I'm not the
stature.
biggest dude, but just
Black
my
man.
stature. I'm 5'11", I'm 220 pounds, so I'm a bigger than average guy, I guess.
Mhm.
So just that one right there, he was already worried that I was going to do him harm, and he doesn't know me, he doesn't know anything. So just me being me.
Yeah.
Just me being me made him scared and was like, "Here's extra because I don't want you to beat me up."
Mhm.
Wow.
Mhm.
And that's the perception of Black people. Like, we're gonna hurt you. No
Mhm.
provocation whatsoever. You just sitting there trying to get a drink.
There's
Yeah.
jokes being made about it. They make it in jest on TV and in sitcoms and stand-up comedies. They always talk about the fact, that people are just scared of us coming through. Oh, they're scared. As soon as you walked into the room, everyone gets scared.
Mhm. Don't
But
let it be a group of you. They'll be
oh yeah,
frightened.
but why is that though? Why is that okay to
Yeah.
think like
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's not okay. But Fred, I was thinking about the story that you told us. You talked about on Facebook when it happened with you and the encounter that you had. Do you feel comfortable talking about that?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Before he shares that, because I was thinking about that too, Simone, I think it's important to note when we talked about this week our experiences, we talked about our own interactions with police. And it's so funny to listen to the stories, not because they're funny stories, but they just get progressively worse. Like from Simone's to mine to Brandon's to Fred's, it just gets like, and it's different. Like from our gender, Simone and my encounters are not the same as Brandon and Fred's encounters. So I thought it might be just for see it on the spectrum. Why don't we just share those, and maybe we'll just share from the least to greatest. So Simone, I know you said yours are like, it's like my stops are nothing. So you
No, my stops always have to do with reckless driving, and I deserve all of the stops.
It's because you're a terrible driver. Let's go and put that out there.
I'm a good driver. I try to tell, just because I get stopped for speed, I'm still good. But you know, I've had experiences where I cried and they let me go. You know, so I haven't had any experiences of like police brutality, and it's also reckless driving and also expired tags, which I pretend I didn't know that they were expired, and they believe me. So I haven't had any experience. So yeah, there you go.
So real quickly, I got 3 I want to share because mine they just change over time. So the first time I started driving in college, when I had my grandmother's car, she had a Buick Regal. And I got pulled over for speeding, which is funny because everybody who knows me knows that I don't drive fast at all. So I was kind of remember being like, "Are you sure, officer? Are you serious? I can't." Like I was real indignant with the officer, and nothing happened to me. Like I had no idea that I shouldn't really be talking to the police officer that way. And after I came home and told my grandmother about the ticket and everything, she was all like, "You know, you got to really be like, yes sir, no sir. You're like, no matter what, you got to be really cool." So the second time I got pulled over, me and my siblings were coming home from the parade, and we went around the police car who had pulled somebody else over. Their lights were not on. They were in the car, talking to the person in the other car. After we passed by them, we got pulled over, and the lights were shining in the cars. "Where are you going? Where do you live? Did you not see me standing out there talking to those people?" And we weren't in any way endangering the police officers or anything. We just went around their car. That was our second experience. And then my third was with Joel. We were in Indiana, and a police officer was following us for an obscene amount of time and pulled us over and was like, "You don't live over here. I don't recognize you. I've never seen you before. I know every car in this neighborhood, and yours don't look like one of them." And we weren't, I think that was where I was like, oh, like Simone said before, like sometimes stuff happens to you and you don't pick up on like the racist part of it. And I think that was when I was like, oh, he's profiling us. He's following us around. Like we're going to do something. We're doing nothing. Just literally just driving around, not doing anything, not harming anybody. But yeah, just crazy how those things just like from greatest to least. Brandon, I know you've had a special experience too.
Man, so back in the day, we used to have church events at the Walnut Street Baptist Church. We used to be out there heavy. And so I missed a turn. And ran a red light on Broadway, one of the main streets in downtown Louisville. And so immediately a cop car, puts the lights up, whatever. And I was like, all right, cool. But it's Saturday night on Broadway back in the day. So, it was people on the streets. Mm-hmm. So there was no place for me to stop. So I ended up putting on my my hazard lights, just kind of, indicating like, yo, I see you. And I pulled into the Courier Journal parking lot. And before I knew it, there were like 7 police cars behind us that surround us. Behind us. And then cop pulls up, gun in hand, gun drawn, straight up, telling me to turn the car off, telling me to, wash my hands, everything like that. And I remember like, she was like, I need all y'all to get out, because it was me, my brother, and 2 of my cousins. I said, I need all y'all to get out. And I hesitated because at that point, I didn't really know my rights, but something was like, something's not right about this. Something's not right. And so I was like, and she's like, do you have something in the car? It's like, no. So get out the car. So at that point, I was like, all right, gun drawn. We all getting out the car. So we sitting on the pavement, chilling, talking to the cops. Cops just, we're talking. They search the car, don't find nothing, let us go. No ticket, no nothing. So all of that, gun drawn at my head, everything like that, and nothing for running a red light.
That's crazy.
I don't know that mine is worse than yours, to be honest. That's pretty intense. So I grew up in California, and my dad always taught me as a young boy to never look at the police officers when we passed them. He always used to say that. He's like, don't look him in the face. He's been pulled over many times, been harassed, been arrested, the whole nine. And that was just the nature of how black men acted in California. Don't look at them. Don't give them no reason to think that you're being intimidating or you're trying to intimidate them or anything like that, so that they don't want to follow you or turn around or whatever. So I grew up thinking like that. And as I became an adult, I did that. I would never look at cops in their face. And I would just drive and, don't turn around. That was another thing. Like sometimes I would, as a child, you just kind of see a cop car go by and you look at them, see where they're going. He's like, oh, do not turn around. Don't ever turn around. And, we talk about being taught certain things and don't know why. And so here I am thinking, okay, you're not supposed to look at cops because it's a bad thing. It's taboo, and his thing is, I don't want them to turn around. I don't want them following us. I don't want them pulling us over. And it could be for whatever reason. He's just like, let's not do it. So I grew up that way. Of course, as I got older, got into law enforcement, got into working security and all that type of thing, it changed drastically. I figured out, there was no problem actually looking at a police officer, and it was okay, So I've been pulled over several times here in Kentucky, no major issue, but I've always been a concealed carrier of a firearm, and I've been an instructor for quite a few years as well. And so I got pulled over once. The stories kind of mend together, but I got pulled over once right at the top of the street of my house, and the guy got me for going too slow. What happened was I had a long night. I took my shoes off, and so I was actually I took my foot off the gas pedal, was just posting down the street, and it was 12:30, 1 o'clock, and I was trying to put my shoe back on before I pulled up to my house. So I was going excessively slow, but it was no one in the neighborhood, which it doesn't matter. I'm going too slow. Like, I'm 5 houses away from my house. So he pulls me over, and what I didn't know was I gave him my license and my registration, insurance, and I gave him my CCDW, which is a concealed carrier of a deadly weapon permit, because I knew my gun was in the car. At that time, the CCDWs were not tied into your driver's license or your car registration. They are now, but they weren't at that time. So I was just being courteous, and I gave him that. Well, he took it, took up my information, took my CCW, and he said, "I didn't ask you for this," and he throws it at me. I'm like, oh, I'll never do that again, because it's not a law. You don't have to give them to them. But I was being courteous. I'm trying to let you know that you are not the only person here with a firearm. And my firearm happens to be on my hip, just like yours is on your hip. And so let's get it all out there. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to go for it. It's not no problem, but I'm here to let you know that we both are carrying legally in the middle of the night. All right. So that's what I thought I was doing. He didn't want to have none of that. So he was angry about that. So I decided that I wasn't going to show my CCW anymore when I got pulled over, because I didn't have to. And he didn't appreciate it. So cool. So sometime later, when I got pulled over last year, it was probably the same time, 12:30, 1 o'clock, and I was leaving rehearsal. What's the name of the theater down there right around the Russell Theater? Russell Theater. Russell Theater is in the hood in Louisville. It's in a very strange place. And so I'm leaving there. We're preparing for a play coming up in a couple of weeks. And so it's, in fact, I think it was that week. I think it was Tech Week. So we had long nights. And so I'm leaving. I go down and make a right on Jefferson. And it's a red light. And I turned. I did not use my blinker, but there was nobody on the road in front of me, behind me, or either way. I was the only person on the road. And so I did stop, but I made a right, and I started going down Jefferson. As I'm going down, I saw the cop car in the parking lot where that blood plasma place is. I saw him, I passed him, but he didn't move. And so I go down the block, and I get to about that fire department right there, and then I see him behind me. And I'm like, okay, he's just pulling out, no big deal. But he shoots up on me. We stop at the stoplight. The next stoplight, he's on my tail. He's sitting right there. And when the light turned green, he came and moved directly with me, like he's on me. I'm like, he's reading my license plate. He's definitely checking me out. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, mind you, I'm like, it is what it is. So I pulled down, and then his lights came on. And I'm like, doggone, he's getting ready to pull me over. Now I'm going through my brain. Why? I did nothing wrong. I forgot about the lights. I mean, the blinker that I didn't use. But I'm like, surely it couldn't be that. So I'm still going. I decided I was not going to stop there. It's kind of dark in that area. The projects have been broken down there. So there's no street lights. But I'm going to go down and make a left on 9th to get on the highway because I live in the east.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I'm going to stop at that stoplight right there on 9th. I know that there are cameras. I know there's very illuminated over there, and there's a lot of traffic. So if this goes wrong for whatever reason, at least hopefully someone will see it and definitely be caught on camera. So by the time I stop, another one is pulling up behind him. So I'm like, it's already 2. Now, let me just preface this by saying, I had a gun on my hip, I had a knife in my pocket, I had 2 guns in a bag on the floor.
He had ninja stars in the glove box.
And I had about 250 rounds of ammunition in a bag on the passenger floor, rear passenger floor. Okay, none of that illegal, but definitely something that would cause question. I'm pretty sure. So I'm like, I was comfortable with everything that I had because I know where I stand and what I do. And the reason why I had all of that is because I just taught a CCW class that morning. And from class, I didn't go home. I did class, I ate lunch, and I went straight to rehearsal. So all my stuff was in the car. And so I'm wearing BDUs. I'm wearing I look like I'm a police officer with the stuff that I'm wearing, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, hopefully the look at least will, bring it down a little bit. He'll see that I'm maybe one of the good guys. So now my car, it's totally black. My windows are black as night. My front windshield is black. I mean, everything's dark. So I'm like, we'll see what happens. So he walks up and he says, roll your windows down. He said, roll your rear windows down. So I roll my rear windows down, but I'd already had my hands on the steering wheel like this. And I had on the steering wheel my license, my registration, my insurance. And I said, for giggles, let me go ahead and put my CCW in my hand as well. So he walked up to the car, and I was like this. I looked over at the window, and he said, do you have any drugs or weapons in the car? That's the first thing he said to me. He said, no. He said, good evening, sir. I said, good evening. He said, do you have any drugs or weapons in the car? And I said, well, yes and no. And he said, he looked at me crazy, and I was like, no drugs, but definitely I have weapons in the car. Mm-hmm. And so he said, I need you to step out of the car. And so I stepped out of the car, put everything that I had on the dashboard, stepped out, and as soon as I got out of the car, I said, my firearm is on my hip, under my shirt in a holster, and I have a knife in that same side. So he started patting me down. I have my hands on the car. He starts patting me down. He says, I'm going to go ahead and secure this weapon, which I know that's what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. He took the weapon and didn't ask any questions. He's patting me all the way down. Now, at this time, 3 more cop cars come off of 9th, make a left where we are, and they're flying. Okay, they don't have their lights on, but they're moving. And I'm like, oh, man, it's a hot night out here. They're going to go get somebody else. And as they flew past us, they all skirted, made a U-turn, and came back. Mm-hmm. Now, 5 cop cars. All 5 of them, the lights are on. All the bright white light on the side, all facing towards me. It looks like a murder scene. And I'm like, oh, boy, this is going to be a problem. So he's patting me down. He said, where are the other weapons? I told him where they were. He hasn't gotten my license yet. He hasn't told me what I got pulled over for yet. He does take my gun and take it back to his car, tells me to stay there, does not handcuff me, tells me to stay there. He goes back to his car, puts the gun on his car, and he's saying something to the second guy that was behind him. The other 3 come up. As they're walking up, they're coming down the sidewalk and in the street. As soon as they get to my car, the guy goes, oh, I told you it was a GAGT. My car is a Pontiac GAGT.
Oh.
It's a faster car. It's, got a little oomph on the hood. It's, it's considered rare and it's considered fast. Yeah. So, but for him to say that to the other guy, I'm like, why are you all talking on chatter about my vehicle? So the guy was like, oh yeah, that's the fast one, right? And so they're all laughing and joking, and they come up, and still they just get a little closer to me, and they form like a semicircle behind my car. They're talking blah 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 blah. So he asked me, he said, come on back to the car, to my trunk. So I come back to the trunk, and I lean against the car, and he goes, wait right here, and he goes in my car, gets my license, and he goes back to his car and starts running my license. So the other cop goes, so I understand you have some weapons in the car? And I said, yeah, I do. And I told him exactly where to find them. And then right when he opened my door is when I got nervous, because I wasn't nervous at all. The entire time I was kind of like, they haven't detained me. They haven't said nothing really crazy. They haven't really talked out of place, you know, but it's still a lot of cops out here. I got a little nervous at that point because I was like, oh, this is getting ready to turn into a real ugly situation because he's in my car now. And I did give him, you know, the right to search my car, although you don't have to. So he reached in my back seat, and then my body flushed because I was like, he's going to go back there. And he's going to come out here and say, oh, what is this? This bag of dope. I was like, because I know it happens. I know people have seen it happen. I'm like, wow, the potential is there. And there's nothing I can do. I got this car full of guns, ammunition, knives, and then all you guys do is say, I just found this bag of X, Y, and Z. So I got nervous at that point. I stayed, you know, physically calm. You know, I looked calm, and I just kept my arms crossed, I'm leaning against the car. And so he pulls my gun out, and he's like, oh, you got one of these, a 365, a PSC 365. Oh my gosh, where'd you get this? Because they were brand new at the time. And I was like, I was like, yeah, I bought that at Open Range. He's like, oh, at Open Range. And so he's like, that's out in Oldham County. Yeah, I live out there. By that time, that guy comes back, and he gives my license back. And so he goes, yeah, so what are you doing out here? What am I doing out here? Driving. You know, I'm leaving rehearsal, which is right around the corner. And he goes, yeah, but I mean, you know, you live in Oldham County, you're so far. And I'm like, well, I come down here to rehearsal every single night at Russell Theater. I'm in a play this coming week, and I'm at rehearsal every night. I'm coming out at the same time every night. And so they're like, as soon as I said that, they were like, oh, the Russell Theater. So all of a sudden, like, the whole countenance just changed. I got real calm, like, oh, okay. You ain't really out here do no damage, you know. So they start talking to me about my job, because I work at Open Range as well part-time as an instructor. So they're like talking about Open Range, talking about me being a CCW instructor, talking about my knife. It's a rare knife. So they're like, oh, it's such and such knife. And the other two cops talking about using racing my car before that. I raced one of those before and I beat it. And I'm like, what's happening here? Like, what's really going on? It's 1:00 in the morning. You're talking about my knife, my guns, my cars, where I live. Why are we here right now?
Let me go.
He finally tells me,
can I go, please?
that he pulled me over because I didn't use my blinker. And he's like, well, let me just go ahead and let you know. Right now in this neighborhood right now, you know, there's a lot of drugs and stuff going on. And, you know, your car brought us some attention, and we're just kind of, you know, making sure everything's good.
Wait, Fred.
Go ahead.
You said he just then told you why he pulled you over?
Just then. We are 20 to 27 minutes into this pullover. Mind you, he just got done running my license. He didn't even run that earlier. So we shooting stuff right there at this point. I mean, we are literally chilling.
Guns. All right, wait, do you have drugs and weapons where'd you get your knife?
Period. They're gawking on all the material, the stuff that I have. And they're talking about it like, this is so awesome, cool, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Now, could that situation have turned into complete melee? Absolutely. And like I said, I didn't get nervous until I was thinking that could they have planted something in my car, because I know that the potential is there. It happens. It has happened. It was so many police cars there. I'm like, we're turning right on a red without a blinker. Why do we have this many police officers here? But they, you know, their body language, the way they were talking, kind of let me, you know, it was an easy situation. But I just feel like, had I not been who I was, had I not been dressed the way I was dressed, or versed the way I was versed, and intelligent and whatever, I feel like it could have and probably would have gone a different way. Had I showed, or the next person showed that he was getting frustrated with the situation and get a little snippy in the mouth, you know what I'm saying? Could it have gotten ugly? Yeah, it could have. So I'm really thankful it didn't.
Yeah.
But it was just too much. It was really too much for what it was. And it let me know that it was definitely a profile stop. You know what I'm saying? They were definitely hoping that they were going to find something in there besides legitimate stuff. I'm sure they were hoping to find something crazy in there. And, you know, coming home with a lick, we got us a good one. You know, we got this
Mhm.
blacked out car. We got this blacked out brother out here in the hood, coming from the hood. And yo, we got him. Got him.
Mhm. Mhm.
Nah,
And your
not tonight.
personality, like the way you handled that, that can't be taught. Like that's just who you are. You have
Yeah.
to have all those skills built in. You're trained, but somebody who doesn't have all that, who maybe has had charges in the past, who may be just nervous because of what it is to be a black man, a person living in this country, like that could have went wrong simply because of their own like nervousness and like justified fear.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's just terrifying to think about what could have happened.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's
Hey,
one
Fred,
reason.
let me ask you about, as far as because I too am a gun owner. I have my concealed weapons license as well, and I find that actually has helped me in multiple stops. When I show that, whether I'm in Kentucky or in another state, I think it's actually got me out of a couple of tickets.
Yeah.
Is there any type of burden on someone who is carrying a weapon, when it comes to being stopped by police, or is that something that police should already have, de-escalation tactics and way that they kind of proceed, with that? In my head, the burden shouldn't be put on the individual. The burden should be
Mhm.
put on the people that my tax dollars are paying.
Mhm.
But
So one of the first things I can say is that when you have a CCDW, although now it's no longer necessary in the state of Kentucky to have a CCDW
Right.
and carry your weapon concealed, we're an open carry state, so we could carry a gun without having a CCDW, but we couldn't carry it concealed. But um, what that says is that, okay, this guy is probably a law-abiding citizen. Okay, what that says is that he took the time to go sit in this 8-hour class and pay whatever amount of money he paid for it, to be bored to death, to go through all this so that he can have
Bored
a
to
license.
death.
Yes. and to carry a license that he does not really have to have. So for them, in their minds, they're like, who would do that if they really are, trying to be a criminal or, be on the bad end? So it does help, number one, to have a CCDW, because it's like, great, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. The burden, no, you should not feel in any form or fashion that's a problem that you have your weapon. That's an issue that you have a weapon in or on you, because we have the right to do so. Um, to inform them, you don't have to either. Like I said earlier, it's a privilege. Hey, I'm just letting you know, hey, we both have a gun on us.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to let you know that if you have to search the car, if I get out, this is here.
Mhm.
You know.
Following just that conversation, I love that we talked about, each four of us, our differences, and just to see the ones between the genders as well. And like, you have somebody like Simone getting stopped, me getting stopped. My biggest concern was just racial injustice. I just felt like I was being mistreated because of the situation I was in. But when you guys tell your stories, I think you all had to worry about life and death.
Yeah.
And that's
The
really
potential
changed.
could be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's really changed a lot. I think over the past few years, like, again, my biggest concern getting put over used to be, oh man, they're gonna mistreat me because I'm black, and now it's like, do I need to have my phone out? Should I be recording? Am I gonna get shot? Like, that's the concern now.
Yeah. Even for me, I told y'all before what I say to my husband when he walks out the door, but even for me, I make sure that I have my wallet and everything next to me and all my cards together so that if something happens, I can grab for it. And anytime I see a police officer, like my heart starts beating faster, and it's hard to concentrate because I'm watching them and I'm trying to watch the road. And if I have my son with me, that's a whole other issue. So it's just, I think, when we talk about this stuff, we have to talk about, it's still May, right? It's still May, so it's still Mental Health Awareness Month, and we have to talk about trauma. We talked about racial trauma last time, but with the stories that you guys have told, and I remember like when that happened, Fred, because you wrote a Facebook post about it, and I texted you and was like just giving well wishes, and all the stuff that we're seeing now, even if you're not out there, it still impacts you. So vicarious trauma, this refers to indirect exposure to racism. which includes witnessing another person or persons being the victim of a hate crime or some kind of other racial assault. So you can experience vicarious trauma from seeing like a direct physical act, or it can be something more covert, like, indirect act of housing or medical discrimination. And in the age of COVID-19, we obviously seen that because people of color are being disproportionately impacted. So all those things play on us, even if you don't directly impact it. So all the imagery, the social media, that stuff that we're seeing, like I think me and Tiffany were texting Thursday night when we were watching the protest, and I noticed I wasn't breathing while I was watching it because I didn't know what was going to happen. So all that is enough to create severe psychological problems associated with PTSD in people of color. Other things you might experience through vicarious racial trauma, depression, anxiety, that might lead to the use of substances. You might even dissociate. So like literally just blank out and disconnect from your experience because of what it is to witness that. Psychosis, and other physical health problems that already plague the African American community. So I think, like, in addition to just, being able to process how we're feeling, we have to remember that these experiences that we're having, if you're feeling more anxious, more, fatigued or angry or whatever, that's all normal. And even if you're not out there experiencing it, if you're watching it and taking all that in, it can have a vicariously traumatic impact.
Yeah. So we could probably talk about this for hours, just because it's a very fresh issue that's happening right now in our city, around the country. But we realize this has also been a longer episode than we usually do. As Simone says, being mindful of the time.
Be mindful of the time.
But before we close up and do our last things, I just want to say big ups to Fred for being on.
Yes.
We know we gave you a good introduction earlier, but I'll just say publicly, Fred is the person I call for everything safety. Every gun question I have, every question I have about security, I'm running it by Fred. He makes our church feel safe. He makes me as an individual feel safe, as a gun carrier feel safe. So I know you also work at a school as a resource officer. So you are safety. You are Mr. Safety.
Right. He was the first. He took me to get my first gun.
As well. Also.
He helped me shoot a gun. It took me forever to shoot the gun. I was like this, and I was like, now you're like, yes. Pull the
trigger. It has to go bang at some point.
Simone, my favorite thing is when he goes, "No, you took too long. Put it down, and pick it back up. Try again."
We always talk about self-care, so we have to know, with all this going on, how are you taking care of yourself?
Me personally?
Yes.
I'm trying to pull away. It's so easy to stay ingrained and built into this foolishness all the time. It's easy. I mean, every flip on your phone, you run into something that's going on that's negative, whether it just be presidential, whether it be national news about COVID-19, whether it be world news about COVID-19, whether it be about murders or brutality or whatever. It's constantly there. So you have to unplug. That's number one. You got to unplug at some point. And I tell my wife, she's right there next to me. We're both scrolling. Then I'll be like, you know what? I'm good. She'll see me going on. I'm like, babe, I said I was good. I want you to be good too. So let's turn it off. And so we'll turn it off, and we'll turn a movie on that's a comedy. You know what I'm saying? Completely unrelated. No, don't turn the drama on. Don't turn no serious thing. Put something on that's just silly. That just helps get your mind off. Getting out in nature, going out and walking. We walk my wife, my daughter, myself, we walk every evening after 2 miles. Just get out there and breathe, get some exercise in. I'm a martial artist, so I love to do things along the lines of a martial arts. I go out, hit the heavy bag. I'm always doing my push-ups. I'm always doing some meditating, some breathing, just something to just keep my mind on something else if possible. Yes, you have to stay attached to this to know what's going on, but just be on it at all times, every day, all day. Not healthy. It's not good. So you got to pull out. You got to pull out and just replace it with something positive. For me, my family's positive. I love my baby girl. I love my wife. I love my friends. I love you guys. So talking to everybody, seeing people. The social distancing thing is kind of lightening up a little bit. So I'm trying to, drive by and see people, folks, and meet them over here. Let's go for a walk down the Big Four Bridge or whatever. That stuff is cool. So I'm trying to take advantage of all of that because we're living in a time that's just like, it seems like there is no good anywhere. And it seems to be getting worse every single day. Since the last time we talked, this city has been turned upside down. Literally.
That was just
Last
a
time
few
we
days
talked,
ago.
there was not one riot, not one protest. It wasn't even in the making. And there have been 3, and there's some going on as we speak right now.
And
So
we
last
talked
time
Wednesday.
we talked Wednesday.
Mhm.
24 hours later, this town was being turned upside down, and none of us have ever seen that before. We've not experienced that here in the city. I've been here for 20. You guys were born and raised here, and you've not seen this. That what's been happening right now in your
No.
lifetime.
No.
So history is being made right now, negatively. Hopefully, very soon it'll be history being made in the positive side. But either way, you got to stay positive as much as possible.
Mhm. Yeah.
So Brandon, Tiffany, what are y'all gonna do to take care of yourselves this week?
I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna take some time to be by myself a little bit more. Kind of do the Simone route. Be in the house with the kids 24/7 for the last 3 months. I've kind of struggled with that. So it's been a little bit. So I'm gonna do that. I start my second job up again this week. So I'm thinking maybe the long drives, maybe make them a little bit longer. When I'm going and coming back to kind of help me out that way. But just really spending some time, with me.
Mm-hmm.
That's important.
Yeah. I am going back to the gym this week. Praise God, the gyms are opening up and I've got to go. not just for my own weight loss and exercise goals, but also because it's an outlet. As Fred said, like I've really missed not having something to kick or hit or even shoot at. Goodness, the range has been closed too, so I haven't been able to do that either for a minute.
They're back open, so you got to come shooting.
Got to go shoot, yeah. But yeah, just being able to go to the gym, and I plan to go every day this week. I hold myself to that goal publicly and privately, just to again just get that outlet going. Again, just a place to also see other people because I haven't seen other people in a while, but to also just get in that outlet.
Yep.
So for me, I'm gonna roll over my eating better thing this week because that pound cake was real. So that Jamaica made. So I'm gonna try to get off of that. I'm gonna get outside more because I think since all this has been going on, it's really been impacting my mental health, and I haven't felt like myself. So I'm gonna try to get some sunshine and just get more air and just be out in the world a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
As you all know, and if you've heard, maybe you haven't heard, but we are unfortunately under a curfew, 9:00 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. Until this thing gets a little bit better. So just be careful. It's not an enforced curfew where they are arresting and pulling people over like that, blah, 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 blah. But they are definitely keeping eyes open for those that are in places that they have a business.
Right.
So keep an eye on that and be very, very careful if you are getting on your way home in the evenings. Probably shouldn't have to rush to fly home before 9:00. But if you're going home, be aware, be wary, be careful.
Yeah, we want to encourage you guys to be involved. Turn off the TV sometime. I know we were talking to our youth at our church the other day, and Simone encouraged them to be creative. Like if you're into music, if you're into writing, journaling, use this time to do that. Just something to kind of tune out of all the craziness that's going on. But then also, if you feel like you want to protest, go be involved. Just do it safely, and then take care of yourself.
You can do it on social media with your posts, donating to different organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Activism looks different.
Yeah.
So
use your platforms.
Yeah. I came up with a saying a long time ago: do more of what you hate and less of what you love.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Try that. It works out.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank you guys for joining us for this episode of These Corona Times, for this discussion. We promise maybe to have something a little more lighter the next couple of weeks, but it's a very timely discussion. It's a good one to have. But until we come back together, y'all stay safe in these Corona times.
Be safe, folks.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, guys. I enjoyed it, and I love all you guys. Take care.
Fred loves us.
He does.
We love you too, Fred. All right.
Thank you.
Take care, y'all.
Bye.